Hello and welcome to this episode of our In Conversation with series, where we're going to be discussing the optical care services. My name's Neame and I'm the Science Subject Specialist here at NCFE. And I'm very kindly joined today by Sham Khan, who's taken some time out to discuss the optical care services with us. So without further ado, I'll hand over to yourself, Sham, to introduce yourself.
Hi, Joe. Thanks. Well, my name's Sham Khan. I'm a qualified dispensing optician and a pathway approved general manager for Specsavers. I've been with Specsavers for about just over 12 years now as well. So been with the company for a long time and done a numerous number of different roles within the company, optical based, retail based, a lot of different jobs in the last 12 years, to be honest. So yeah.
So, well, that leads me to my first question then, because you've listed quite a few different roles there. So what's your current role? If we'll start
So
there.
at this moment in time, my current role is probably coming under the umbrella of business development manager. So what I look after at the moment is in 3 stores, certain aspects that need sort of special focus and attention. So at this moment in time, for example, contact lenses, we need to look at the infrastructure, the day-to-day running, the staffing levels, how the customer journey looks for the customers coming in, making it more efficient for the customers, making it so our team know what the targets and what the objectives are. So I put in place plans with the directors, with the team, as to how we're going to make the contact lens business better, how we're going to train the staff up, how we're going to keep them progressing within the contact lens business as well, and what we can do basically to make our stores as efficient as possible for the contact lens aspect of the business.
And are there any specific challenges you're facing at the minute with that?
I think at the moment, because within the 3 stores I work, they're all 3 very different stores, even though they're under the Specsavers umbrella. I've got the biggest store, which is like a 10 testing store, which is huge, totally different layout of the team compared to my other 2, which are smaller, 4 and 5 testing rooms as well. So I think the challenges are that you can't just have one set plan and apply it to everything. You have to sort of tailor it for each individual store as well. So that's probably been the most challenging, because where you think, okay, yeah, that works really well here, you go and analyze the other business and you're like, actually, we need to tweak that and change that, because that's not what the problem is here. It's something else. So yeah, you can't have a blanket approach to everything, I guess. So that makes it a bit harder.
So is that very much you design that from going into the stores and having feedback from members of staff there, or do you spend a couple of days there observing? How do you come up with those specific plans?
A bit of both, really. So I think it's always good to go into the business and actually observe and see what's going on, because I think sometimes what you get told and what happens can be slightly different as well. So observation is key. I think you have to observe, see what's going on, how it works. But then I think it's always good to get the staff's point of view as well, as to what's going on, what they think needs to be improved. Obviously, you need the buy-in from the staff as well for any plans going forward. So you always involve them in the decision-making process along the way as well, to make sure you get their buy-in to succeed.
Perfect. And so you mentioned a few different roles in that introduction. So working backwards, what led you to that role? What other things? What did you start doing, and how did that build to where you are now?
So it's funny, because like the way I actually started was my nana needed an eye test, so I booked one in for her.
Yeah.
And then I thought, you know what, I've never had one. I don't know what it is. I'll book one in for myself as well. So when I took her, I was getting tested at the same time. But the person who did my test at the time was the ophthalmic director for one of the Specsavers. And he just started having a general chit chat with me. And he was like, so what are you doing at college? What do you fancy? I was telling him I was doing like my sciences and stuff. And I was like, I fancy something medical related, so pharmacy, medicine, biomed, something like that. And he turns on and goes, have you thought of optometry? I was like, I don't know what that is. And then he basically started to go and explain as to what he does in terms of, obviously, there's loads of options, testing eyes, becoming a dispensing optician, a lot of options. I was like, yeah, that's something I probably would be interested in as well. And then at that point, he just goes, oh, would you fancy a part-time job here, like a Saturday job? And at the time, I was waiting as a 16-year-old. So I was like, yeah, definitely, I'll come work here. So started off with that. So he offered me a job. I started as a Saturday boy. Worked for a year while I was doing my A-levels as a Saturday boy. Then went on to go on to the ophthalmic dispensing degree through Abdo in Godmersham. Did that, which was 3 years distance learning as well. So qualified as a dispensing optician from that. After the dispensing optician, I thought, you know what, my goal is I want to be a director. I want to have my own store. But then obviously there's loads of things that you have to do before that. So I started on the ILM course. I think it's Institute of Learning Management courses, which is like recognized throughout the country. So I did 2 of them. After that, became a manager in one store. Left that store then to progress into becoming a retail manager at a different store, and then starting what's called Pathway, which is the training to become a director as well. So while I was doing that, I became general manager in another store, did my training alongside that and did a project on that. And then I passed all of that. I was Pathway approved, and now I was looking for my own store. So in the meantime, this is the role I'm doing while I'm looking for my own store. So I've had a bit of like a roller coaster journey from like looking at from a customer service point of view, looking at from the optics point of view, looking at from the business point of view. I've been exposed to everything along the way. So that's why I feel like to become a director, that's probably the best use of my skill set that I've learned over the last 12 years.
Yeah. Yeah, no, but so what A levels were you doing at the time? Because you mentioned the sciences and stuff like that.
Biology, chemistry, maths, and religious studies. But I
Mm-hmm.
dropped maths after the first year because that was a bit harder than I thought it was going to be.
Yeah, no, I'm asking because how much do you think that scientific understanding has supported you in obviously your progression through optical care?
I think it helps. It definitely helps if you have a good basic understanding of like your science and your maths. Because when you go into optics, it is quite sort of science based, maths based. There's a lot of numbers, a lot of anatomy that you need to learn with the eye, ears, depending on what route you go down. So I think having a good, just like a basic understanding, definitely helps when you go to further that. Obviously, other things you learn along the way. Like when I first started as a 16-year-old, 17-year-old. I was really shy. I couldn't speak to people. Like, it was my first proper job in waiting. You don't really speak to a lot of people. You just take food out. Whereas this, you were dealing with patients on a day-to-day basis. You had people from like little kids up to elderly patients. You have to learn how to speak to them, build a rapport with them, have that customer service skill. So that you just get taught and learn along the way as well. So that's something that you can't really sort of prepare for until you're physically doing it yourself, I think.
Yeah, no, and that sort of leads me on to another question as well, because obviously you talked about obviously managing. Was that something that came easy to you, or did you, when you're doing those leadership and management courses, was it something that you really had to train yourself up in, or was it a bit of both?
Surprisingly, it came to me quicker and easier than I thought it was gonna. So when I started, like I said, I was quite shy. But I think being 17, 16, you're sort of trying to develop into your own person at that age as well. And when you're exposed to certain things, it helps you grow massively. So, and I just took it in my stride, if I'm being honest with you. Like, going back 12 years, there wasn't like regimented induction plans and stuff. It was basically, right, you've got a job here, go shadow that person for a day. The next day you're doing that. So compared to what we do now for the new starters, it's totally different back then. So you just kind of got thrown in at the deep end, and it's either sink or swim really. So I was lucky enough, I grasped it pretty quickly. And like I said, the science and maths background helped, but with the actual theory of everything, and then learning, and you have it's a weird place because you have one of them relationships with your colleagues where you'll be learning from someone who's in their 40s and 50s who've been doing customer service their own life, and then you take pointers from them and you learn from them, and you develop your own personality based on the people that you work with as well, especially as a young kid coming in. And I think that just helped massively when you're in a team that has a range of people working there, from like my age kids up until like later on experienced members of staff. You do pick up a lot of things, you do learn a lot of things, and there's a lot of support as well. So I feel like it was a bit of a mixture. I had the guidance and support, but I feel like I picked up on it quite quickly as well.
Yeah, no, definitely. And in terms of linked to that as well, was that a similar thing with like patient care? You mentioned obviously developing relationships with patients and stuff like that. Was that something you very much picked up from colleagues, or again, was it something you had to go away and look into in terms of learning?
I mean, it was a bit of both because obviously with Specsavers, we had some training courses. iLearn was a big help as well. It teaches you how to speak to patients. But also on the flip side, you sit and observe your colleagues, the ones that you know are really good with customers, the ones that build up the relationships, the ones that you know they're coming back to see that colleague again because they've had good service from them in the past. They've built that relationship with them, and you know for a fact the patient trusts their judgment and guidance on anything that they're going to say in terms of their eye health, their glasses, whatever it may be as well. So I think a bit of theory, a bit of practical. Once you blend that in together, I think you can develop it pretty well. When it came to obviously going down the management route, that I learned on ILM that obviously sometimes you have to deal with patients that are not happy, so the conflict management, that sort of stuff. I'll probably learn a bit more from theory, understanding what to do, because sometimes when you've got a really angry person in front of you, you don't know what to do, and you get back foot a bit as well.
Mm.
Whereas when you learn the management techniques and how to deal with patients like that, it just makes it so much easier as well.
Yeah, and is that I'll ask, is that a frequent challenge, or is it quite rare, or do you have to deal with that quite often?
To be honest, when you get into management, I think you deal with that more often than you would like to. But I think because you've dealt with it so often, I think you know how quickly to diffuse the situation as well. Like, you know how to deal with that customer. You just need to understand what the customer's reasoning is as well, because if there is a reason, people don't like to just kick off for the sake of kicking off. There is a reason for it. So what you want to try and do is listen to the customer, obviously apologize for any inconvenience caused, and try and resolve the situation as quick as possible. So you deal with it, and it depends on where you're working. You deal with it more than you would like to deal with it, but it's not as bad as what some people think.
So to balance out that question, what's been your best experience working in the sector so far?
It's been a lot, to be honest. There's been a lot of little things that I've just thought, you know what, this has been amazing. I've actually loved this. Like when I first started at 17, obviously you're just leaving sort of college. You're thinking of going to go to university. You're in a team, like I said, where one of my best friends at the time was like 15 years older than me, because I used to work with him. So you build a lot of good relationships and you meet a lot of good people. So that's one thing I definitely enjoyed working with Specsavers. Like I made friends for life with the place that I've worked with as well. Like I've been married recently, and the majority of my friends have been people that I've worked with as well. So that were there. So that's one of the things. Other things that I've stood out is over the years of working in optics, I've built a bit of a relationship with certain clients that just want to see me, and that's it. They'll follow me to whichever store I go to. They just want to see me because I've dealt with them in the past. I've looked after them, and from young kids who literally I've seen grow up now, which is weird because over the last 10 years you've been seeing the same person. You see the kids grow up and you just think, I'm feeling old. So like the elderly patients who just, they want that extra attention and care, and they want to see someone who knows that they're going to look after me and they're going to speak to me, ask them about their life. So the whole patient interaction, I used to love that. Like that's one of the main things I miss when I was on the shop floor all the time as well, when you get to build that relationship. So it doesn't then feel like a job. It just feels like you're talking to people, asking them about their lives, giving them what's best for them, and that's it, done. So I think the patient interaction, to be honest, the whole people aspect, whether that's with your colleagues and whether that's with the patients as well.
So is that something now you obviously feel quite passionate about, is when you see young people coming into the optical care services, do you want to offer that support that you had, and that friendly approach almost to their development?
100%. I think for me, one of the key things is as well, even when I become a director of a store, I want people to develop. I want people to progress, and I want people, because at the end of the day, if you're going to own a business, you know people are going to leave. I only want them to leave because they've progressed to a point where they physically cannot progress anymore. Like I did with my stores as well. Like they'd help me up to a certain point. There was no opportunities after that, so I had to leave for my own progression. But I want to be able to have people go through the journey that I've been through, because when I was 18, when I've been working there for a year, I thought, you know what, I'm going to get into the optics industry. I want to get right to the top as well. And I made that decision like 12 years ago that that's where I want to be. So, and then the journey that I've had over the last 12 years or so, it's just been one of them where I know there's a path there, I know there's development there, and I know things can happen. And sometimes when you see someone else developing and progressing, and you've had a hand in that, you've mentored them, you've coached them in certain things, it makes you feel a bit proud as well that I've helped that person get to that point and I've given them that opportunity. Because sometimes, like I said, I remember if I had to interview at 16, 17, 18, you're very nervous, and sometimes all you need is a break. So I've done that a few times in interviews where they might have been a bit nervous in the interview, probably not shone right through, but give them the opportunity, help them grow. and then they've turned into one of the best staff members I've ever had.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, brilliant, because obviously we've got the optical care services occupational specialism coming up within the T level, and as part of that, students need to go out and do an industry placement. So can you see, well, obviously I think I know the answer, but can you see that friendly approach to development for those students who come in on those industry placements within the store?
100%, 100%. I mean, that's something I think our stores are quite keen on anyway, like developing the young people in the area, getting them in, getting them trained up. Like, recently, just before COVID hit, we were building quite a good relationship with my own old secondary school. So I'd gone in for the careers day, speaking to students, had a few students that were interested in the A levels that were wanted to go down the route of optometry. So we got them in some work trials, give them a bit of experience on the shop floor, experience in the test rooms, to give them a bit of a feel for what they think. So it's something that we're quite keen on in our community, and I can only see us going further forward with that as things go on.
Yeah, no, and this is just one of those generic questions, but in your opinion, why is the optical care services so important?
It's to be honest, optics I think is a weird industry anyway. But the reason why I think it's important is the care that we give people. Like, I don't think you can totally understand that until you're in the industry. Like, I've seen it where we've had kids who have never had glasses before. They need glasses, and their reaction the first time they put glasses on, it's unbelievable. Or I've had elderly patients who haven't got much of a social life. They've had their glasses broken. They're stuck in a hospice because they're not well. I've had to go out, give them a pair of glasses made, physically go out myself, fit them up, make sure everything's okay, to make their life a bit more comfortable. So I know it sounds a bit cheesy when you say it, but you can make a difference to people's lives. When the lockdown happened, obviously everything was closing. One of our main stores closed as well. But we had over 150, 200 pairs of glasses that were in the store. I remember what we did then. I remember dropped 101 pairs of glasses off. Majority of our patients are elderly patients. And in lockdown, either if they're reading or watching TV, that's pretty much what everyone did. And if they didn't have their glasses, they kind of stuck. So I remember over 3 days, 101 pairs of glasses I dropped off. So, and like to be able to do that and make people's lives a bit easier, I think that's one of the main things why I think optics, I think it's, until you get into it as well, I think it's a bit underappreciated, because you don't realize how much of a big impact it has. Like, before I started optics, I didn't understand how people could not see without their glasses. It just didn't make sense, because no one in my family wore glasses. I don't know what you mean you can't see without your glasses. But until you get into the industry and understand the impact it has on day-to-day lives, it's crazy.
I mean, well, that's 101 pairs of glasses is amazing. I mean, no wonder your patients follow you from from branch to branch if that's the service you provide.
I absolutely love driving, but after driving
Yeah.
for like 3 days in a row like that, oh, it was tough. But to be honest, it was fun at the same time. It was unprecedented times. I'd never done anything like that before, but it was something that we thought, you know what, we have to do for the patient care more than anything.
And have you noticed, obviously, with the lockdowns with COVID, has optical care services had to adapt much, or is it very much just business as usual, or is it, obviously I know we had the social distancing and everything, but how did that impact the care services?
I think at the start, it was basically a case of no one had a clue what was going on.
Hmm.
We were getting guidance and rules coming through at 12 o'clock. They were changing by 4 o'clock in the evening. So literally no one at the start, I think, knew exactly what was going on and what was the best thing to do. But I think COVID's been a tough challenge for customers and staff, to be honest, I think. We've obviously had the whole PPE, masks, gloves, aprons, sanitizing equipment, sanitizing glasses, social distancing, how to make sure we keep not just the patients safe, but our staff as well. Obviously, but dealing with, obviously, we've had customers who just sometimes don't understand the protocols that we put into place, and trying to manage their expectations and managing other people's expectations that understand why, but they're still a bit apprehensive. So I think COVID's been a tough couple of years, to be honest. We're still obviously having certain things in place like masks and sanitizing equipment and stuff. So I don't think it's ever going to go away now. So it's probably the way that the industry's adapted to it. But it's one of them where I think with all the staff that we've had and all the things that we've had to change and the things that our staff has had to adapt to, never mind the customers. I think it's been a tough couple of years.
Yeah, no, definitely to say the least. And just in terms of, are there any other challenges facing the sector that you can see, or has that been the biggest one basically that's sort of shadowed anything else?
I personally, we think about this obviously for someone who's looking to go into the industry as having their own business in there. You always look at these things and you think, oh, what could be a challenge? Online was always rumored to be a massive, massive challenge to the industry, but I don't think it's been as big of an impact as I thought it was going to be. I think you can't beat good old customer care. You genuinely can't. So I think the biggest risk probably was COVID, and I think Specsavers survived that really well. Like, it just goes to show how strong of an industry it is. And with all the training and all the opportunities coming into place now for optics, I genuinely see it growing stronger now. I can't see Specsavers especially becoming a bit weaker overall. So I personally think the biggest challenge I've seen in the industry has been COVID.
Yeah, no, are you seeing a bit of an influx of patients and customers now that didn't come during the pandemic, or and sort of now catching up almost?
We did have at the start of when we obviously went back to a bit more normality, we've seen a massive influx of patients coming back. And we've had a bit of a quiet period now because it's been like that 2-year recall from when COVID actually happened. So there was no recalls back then. So we've seen a bit of a dip in the volume and in the amount of patients coming in. But obviously, I don't think the weather's helped with that as well. I think it's been too warm for people who want to come into optics. But yeah, it was. We had a massive influx at the start when we went back to normal. Apart from non-essentials, when we started seeing everyone. So yeah, I think it's starting to get hopefully a bit more normal now. But at the start, yeah, we had a massive influx of patients coming back after we stopped seeing essential people only, and now I think it's a bit more normal now.
So now, because we've spoken about the challenges, obviously you've talked about your progression pathway and everything within that. What are the opportunities within the sector for you, for someone wanting to join the sector at whatever level?
Honestly, it just depends on what you fancy, to be honest. There's so much to do. Like, you think Specsavers, you just think, oh, opticians, that's it. There's so much to do. You've got for starters, you've got audiology, which doesn't get talked about enough. I think sometimes there's so many progression routes into becoming a hearing aid dispenser, becoming an audiologist, and becoming an audiologist director. Like, there's so many routes in that sense. Then you can go on to obviously the shop floor. You've got optical assistants. You've got managers on the shop floor. You've got dispensing opticians who specialise in the glasses aspect of the customer's journey. You've got optometrists who do the eyes tests. You've got contact lens opticians who specialise in contact lenses for people who want to wear contact lenses, which is a massive, massive part of Specsavers as well. You've got, if that's not something you fancy, you can become a lab technician, a lab manager, who works and actually makes the physical glasses as well. So it literally does depend on the person who wants to progress into anything. Like I said, once you get into Specsavers, the progression pathway, it's all down to the individual. They can go from, like I said, I went from Saturday boy to hopefully director. You can literally go to any route as long as you've got that sort of driving passion for it. There's so many opportunities.
And those progression pathways are in place, definitely at Specsavers by the sounds of it.
Yeah, 100%. Like, we're always looking out for like the next sort of superstars who wants to go on and become an optician, who wants to go on to become a lab technician, and an audiologist, a contact lens optician. It's always good, like I said, to have people who want to progress in life, who want to do well for themselves, and whether that's because of job satisfaction, whether it's money orientated, it all depends on the person. But there's always options for everyone in terms of having that route. So you can literally stand there at the start, say, okay, I want to go down this route, and the route's planned out for you. So this is what you need to do to get to that point. So yeah, progression pathways in Specsavers are definitely set up for people that sort of succeed.
Fantastic. And just something you said there's made me think, like, how long did it take you to get your head around? Obviously, you said you worked there since 16, 17. Things like refractive indexes and things like that, and all in terms of the optician dispensing, like how long did that take to click?
Well, put it this way, I remember going, because I was only Saturday part-time for the first sort of 9 months of my Specsavers career. So whatever I learned on the Saturday, I forgot by the following Saturday.
Yeah.
So When I actually went on my first ever lecture to on my ophthalmic dispensing degree, they were talking about long-sighted, short-sighted, stuff like that. I didn't have a clue what that meant at the time. So to put it into context, I had no clue.
Yeah.
And I literally went from not understanding what that meant in the first ever lecture at uni to then I think within a couple of weeks it was literally a case of it starts to make sense. Okay, refractive index, that's what that means. Okay, prism, that's what that means. That's what that does to the eye. Like when you start learning it and you've got the things in place to be taught that, I thought for me it came quite quickly. But I went in with literally what I thought was zero knowledge when I started doing my degree. So yeah, it's not something I'd encourage people to be scared of, because I think it is one of them things where you will get taught, you will learn it, like I did. Because like I said, I remember sitting there with people in my degree who were store managers who had been in optics for years, who knew exactly what everything meant, and I was there as this fresh 17, 18-year-old, not having a clue what short-sighted, long-sighted means.
Hmm.
So yeah,
Yeah. No,
it's quite at first, but once you get your head around it, once you get taught it, it comes quite quickly. I personally thought.
it has been that almost that lifelong up until that learning journey throughout, right up until the position you're in now.
And you're still learning, to be honest.
Yeah.
It's constant learning. Like I don't think you could know everything or ever. Like especially in optics as well. Like there's certain things still now that I get taught, and I'm like, I thought I'd know that after 12 years of being in the business, but
Yeah.
obviously not.
Yeah.
But it's one of them where you're constantly learning and you're constantly progressing, you're constantly developing, and I think that's probably the best way to be, to keep on top of your game.
Hmm. No, that's brilliant. And I think that's as big a promotion as I've ever heard. Well, I've learned a lot about the optical care services, put it that way, that I didn't know about beforehand. So thank you very much for coming and chatting to me. Thank you to anyone who's listened as well. I hope you found it insightful. And I'm sure Sham would happily answer any more questions on the optical care services in the future.
Anything, always happy.
That's brilliant. Thank you.
Thank you.